unless you just get that Google extension.
That's true. That's
Which
really
is
funny.
It's a good Google extension, but it does not touch the glories of Nicolas Cage.
Okay.
What? You don't know that?
Nobody will ever know.
Robert knows, unless you just get that
That was
Google
hilarious. Okay.
Nicolas Cage.
Which
Really
is
funny.
It's a good Google extension, but it does not touch the glories of Nicolas Cage.
Okay.
What?
Yeah, ready?
You don't know that? Can we, is there a way we can look at the
Nobody
Google
will
Docs so
ever
that we can
know.
see Robert knows?
Oh yeah,
Unless you
once I do the transition. Okay.
Okay.
Once you hold sharp fingers up, I'm gonna slash your
It's a
back.
good Google extension.
This way you
but
guys
it
can
does
see
not
it.
touch the glories of Nicolas Cage.
Transition.
What?
Yeah, ready?
You don't. And since there's no delay, it's just as soon as it goes. Is there a way we can start talking to the
Nobody
Google
will
Docs so that we
ever
can see
know.
Robert knows?
Oh yeah,
Unless you
once I do the transition. Okay.
Okay.
Now you hold sharp fingers up, I'm gonna slash your
Yeah, it's a
back.
good Google extension.
This way you
but
guys
it
can
does
see
not
it.
touch the glories of Nicolas Cage.
Transition. Yeah, ready?
You don't. And since there's no delay, it's as soon as it goes. Is there a way we can start talking to the
Nobody
Google
will
Docs so
ever
that
know.
Robert knows?
Oh yeah,
Unless
once I do the transition. Okay.
Okay.
Now you hold sharp fingers up, I'm gonna slash
Yeah,
your
it's a
back.
good Google extension.
This way you guys can see it.
Yeah.
Transition. Yeah, ready?
You don't. And since there's no delay, it's as soon as it goes. Is there a way we can start talking to the Google Docs so that Robert knows?
Oh yeah, once I do the transition. Okay. Now you hold sharp fingers up, I'm gonna slash your back.
It's a good Google extension.
This way.
Alright everyone, welcome back to the world of cinematics. We have just gotten out of seeing The Batman. It's been a month of preparation in terms of our videos and years in terms of anticipation. But I can only speak for myself, although I assume my Alright everyone, welcome back to the world of cinematics. We have just gotten out of seeing The Batman. It's been a month of preparation in terms of our videos and years in terms of anticipation. Alright, shut until we're on camera, only speak for myself, although I assume my Alright everyone, welcome back to the world of very starting going into it with my thoughts on The Batman. It's been a month of preparation. This was kind of everything I wanted in a Batman film. It was a detective story, but not just the detective story in that they're trying to figure this out. This is a noir film. It's slow, it's dark, it's heavy. This is you watching the worst of humanity, and you have to face it and say, it's worth fighting for anyways. This was kind of a horror movie. Not a horror movie like Halloween, more like Seven, where you see very little violence, you see the aftermath of violence, you see the aftermath of death, and then you have to deal with it. That blend of horror that worked really well with the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where you see almost nothing, but you feel everything. That is a great way to make sure that this feels adult and mature and dark and heavy without needing to go R-rated. This is not a movie I would take the kids to, but this isn't even a movie I would recommend to everyone because of how dark and just dour it is. Not dour in the sense of this is too heavy, but dour in the sense of this is a lot to take in. But that's everything I want in Batman, and I loved it.
Alright.
1 second. I need to fix this audio.
Alright, this is being fixed.
And then we're going with Brendan. He's next, and then it's me. Or sorry, then it's Robert, then me, then Mary. We're going in order of age.
So you like it?
FYI, and we also got
Yes, we're timing
Okay,
ourselves
okay,
to
we should
make
be
sure we
good.
don't have another hour and a half episode.
We're good.
Alright, Brendan?
All right. So for me, this movie was
No, go. Just keep going.
this movie was probably the best movie about Batman, in the way that it's really about him. We're trying not to jump into spoilers, but there's some narration elements with Batman, and so you really get to see what's inside his head, which is nice because in the comics there's always little thought bubbles or boxes or whatever, so you can see what they're thinking. And it was nice to get into his head and see where he's at as being second. He's only in his second year as the Batman. So I really think it was the best Batman movie, mostly because it focused on Batman and his detective skills and stuff like that. That's really all I'm going to talk about without spoilers. So,
sweet. Robert?
I'm sorry, I've been dealing with all this.
Where are we at? Where are we at right now?
Non-spoiler thoughts.
Non-spoiler thoughts?
Yeah, take a minute.
For my non-spoiler thoughts, I thought it was really funny. It definitely was dark, is the way I liked it. Edward Pattinson, cool. costume. That's my non-spoiler thought.
For myself, the things I loved the Gordon Batman dynamic. I loved Colin Farrell as the Penguin, and I loved the Riddler. Things I didn't like Catwoman, and I didn't like Falcone. That's it. Aaron, you're up.
Yeah, I want to make a comment about that, but I'll save it for later. But no, overall, I found myself enjoying quite a bit of the plot. There was a moment where I did feel it was a little bit too slow, but otherwise I felt like it was really well done. I felt like the detective side was really good. I liked the riddles, and I think overall it was a pretty good film.
Okay. Is there anything someone wants to say before we go into spoilers? I do have, without going into spoilers, I wanted to ask Stefan a question about something he said. You said you weren't a big fan of Catwoman and Falcone. Are you not a fan of the way they were used in the story, or just their performances?
Used in the story. The performances are fine.
Okay. I will say, since none of us really talked about it that much, the action in this movie is great. There's very little in it. But at no moment was I ever thinking, it's been half an hour since the last action scene, because everything else was gripping. It kept me on the edge of my seat. What's going to happen next? Not necessarily what's the cool punch we're going to see next.
Right.
Yeah, the action was. I did notice it did take a while for the action to pick up again.
Yeah.
But like you said, the story was interesting enough for me to not be all invested in that. It really reminded me of some detective shows I've seen, obviously darker than some ones I've seen, obviously to me. But so yeah, it still had me. The story still had me.
What surprised me, and what I considered an improvement from what I was hoping for, is that instead of picking up sort of where Ben Affleck's Batman left off, which is what I said last week, he's not a meathead who's just pounding people for the heck of it. He has his reasons, but he doesn't just pound people. The trailer made it look like he's just going to be beating on people. He doesn't just beat on people. He's a lot smarter than I thought he was. He's a lot more level-headed than I thought he was, and I actually liked that a lot better than just this rage-filled, insane Batman. So that's something I did appreciate about that, and about the action generally speaking. All of it seemed to be a purpose, not just for the fun of punch, kick. So those are my thoughts on the action.
Do we want to jump over to spoiler stuff now?
Yeah, before we do, we all like it to some degree. This is not a movie for the kids.
No.
Use discretion when bringing to it. Some people said they were surprised it wasn't rated R. Personally, after having seen it, it's like The Dark Knight, where I was kind of impressed with how much they got away with it being PG-13. At no moment did I say, this should have been R.
Yeah, the thing that surprised me is that I thought it'd be way worse.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be super grisly.
From all I'd heard, yeah.
It's not. I'd say, they take the Lord's name in vain a ton in this movie, and there's one noticeable F-bomb. Other than that, the murders, imagine if you've seen the show Monk, there's murders every single episode. It's similar to that, where you don't necessarily see all the gross stuff. But when you put it in a darker cinematic light and darker mood, then it seems worse than it is. But I was like, a lot of these things aren't worse than, the TV show Monk, which is like TV-14 at the worst. So
You'll see blood on the floor. You don't really see the blood on the
victims.
victims.
In the head.
Yeah.
Or the murder weapon.
Yeah. Blood on the murder weapons, but you don't see a bloody corpse.
Not nearly as gruesome or as dark as, in my opinion, The Dark Knight, which has Two-Face's face.
Yes.
It was like the lighting was always dark, though. I kind of was getting a little like, okay, let's see some light. There was a couple scenes where there was like sunrise or whatever, but there's just a lot of it was dark. My mind kept on going back to Solo, Star Wars story, where I was like, I can't see what's going on. But in this case, it is the Batman, and we know he has the night shift, so it kind of works. And there was a lot of fun play with the silhouettes and fight scenes. So it was cool.
Did you have your hand up, Robert?
I did. I have to put my hand up just because I mean, one, I'm in the corner too. I got to do a complete switch for cameras. I know for me, I did like how they kept it that way, where it's like a blurred kind of feel, like you don't actually see the murder. But just hearing it is enough to be like,
Yes.
wow, this is an intense scene.
Right.
Like it brings that darker realism to it.
Without needing to be graphic.
Yeah, without having to like bring complete gore and turning it into a rated R film, like you were saying.
Yeah, it's a lot of mental, scaring you with mental or just
Yeah, your imagination.
But you
let
don't
your
see-
imagination be
It's
a scary
psychological
thing.
terror rather than just.
What you
terror,
don't see
terror.
is scarier than what you probably would have seen.
Well, and I would like to add also that's kind of how I feel Batman has always been.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't fight. I mean, he fights a few super powered people, but for the most part, he's fighting psychological
Humans.
nut jobs.
Yeah.
Hence Arkham Asylum. So.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, I have no more non-spoiler thoughts that I feel compelled to share. Anyone else?
No.
Okay, who's getting started off on? We're breaking down our spoiler review into 4 different categories. We're gonna talk about story, performance, the filmmaking, and the score, the music.
I was just going to nominate Stefan for story.
Okay.
Just because you talked about in the non-spoiler about the use of Falcone and Catwoman story, so I'm curious.
So do you guys want me to break down the story or just talk generally about it?
I will say at this point we are going to be, talking about spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, go watch the movie, then come back. And if they've already seen it, I don't think we need to do a full-on plot synopsis. Just talk
Yeah. Okay.
about how you want to talk.
Perfect. So the thing that I really, like I said, I really liked is the Gordon Batman dynamic. They're it's sort of a buddy cop film between Batman and Gordon, which is something that I really wanted, and I've never gotten it so far. Keaton didn't do it. They kind of did it in the Nolan films, but it was more like, hey, Gordon, you go drive the Tumbler, or hey, you Gordon, you go do this while I go get Rachel. But they're actually working together. They meet at the Bat Signal, just the two of them, and they actually go and interrogate people. They go and Gordon is a bit more action based, not necessarily that he did a whole bunch of action, but he was actually with Batman. They're talking to each other on the radio. They're going in and doing things together as a pair, and they have that trust that I really liked. And then the Riddler is, the main catalyst for everything bad that was going on there. And I enjoyed Paul Dano's performance and the creepiness and the eeriness of the whole scenario there. And I think everyone likes Colin Farrell's Penguin. He's probably the comic relief, and I wish there was more of him in this film. The reason I didn't quite like Catwoman and Falcone, spoiler alert, there's a relationship to them, which you could figure out if you've read a comic book.
Yeah,
I
think it was first in Long Halloween.
Yeah. In some versions, she's the daughter of Carmine Falcone. And so I was like, okay, they're probably related in this version. And, when it was revealed, I was like, okay. And then Catwoman's girlfriend, she
Not actual girlfriend, just friend that's a girl.
yeah, she dies. And she's sad about that, and she wants to kill her dad because he's scum and all this stuff. And I felt like that slowed the good stuff down, like between those, 4, but I'll say 3, Riddler, Gordon, and Batman. Just all that stuff I really liked. But then it's like, side plot. Let's focus on Catwoman and her dynamic with her dad. I was like, for a first Batman film, I was really enjoying just focusing in on Batman, honing in on him. And then it's like, how about Catwoman? She flirts with Batman, she kisses him, she has her own issues, and they kind of have similar issues. I wasn't into it. I was like, I'd rather focus on them, and then if you introduce her later, sure. But, they decided to have Catwoman in this one. That's fine. The performances were fine. The characterization technically is fine because she acts as you would expect Catwoman to act. But I didn't enjoy deviating from the main storyline. What I felt like was a B storyline.
Okay, so it's not the decisions that were made in the story itself, but rather the decision to focus the story on those elements.
Yeah, and that's my problem with the story. Is I didn't really enjoy the Catwoman aspect. The decision to include that and Falcone and all that. And the drama there, I was like, I don't care. I care more about figuring out the
Batman and Riddler.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting you say that because I've heard the exact opposite. In a couple of reviews that Jed and I listened to, is they love the Catwoman aspect of the story and they didn't care too much about the Batman stuff, which I'm like, okay, guys, I might be one of the few, but I like both because one affects the other. If with a Catwoman, for those who didn't know, I did know that she was going to be Falcone's daughter, most likely in this version. But for those who don't know, trying to figure out what is her reasoning, for doing the things she's doing. Why is she robbing the mayor's house after he's just been killed? All these things, and it works as a good push for the story. And Stefan agrees that it does help the story. It just wasn't something he liked, but with Falcone coming out into the light and with Riddler eventually killing him, there needed to be another force pushing Batman to save Falcone's life. Not because Batman is going to do it himself. Not at any point did I believe that. But if he doesn't have an outside force that's going to prevent him from achieving justice on Falcone, then there's no tension. It's just, I'm just going to go arrest him and that's going to be the end of it. Which is kind of what happens, but it adds this enough tension and kind of a mini climax for her story, but also move the bigger climax of the story that occurs later.
Right. Everything else, ignoring that storyline, I was like, firing on all cylinders, full 10 out of 10, perfect for me. Well, maybe not perfect, but everything I was looking for. But with that, how it started, and you see how his investigations into these killings and the Riddler would lead him to that, and how he would work with her to continue that, working great for me. It was at the moment where she lights up the bat signal and says, hey, come up here, I've got the guy. That's the moment where I'm like, okay, cool. How does this relate back to this? And I was invested in that storyline, but I'm like, this is a long movie. When is this going to tie back?
Right.
And then it did tie back. I'm like, okay, I see now. Still felt like a detour. Not a detour that led us to a different destination, but it did feel like that could have been rewritten to incorporate better to the main story instead of feeling like a nice little side detached thing.
Yeah, it felt like fat, especially that point,
Because him going to save Falcone from Catwoman, I love that scene.
Yeah.
The best thing about the scene where she lights up the bat signal is he establishes hardcore, I don't kill people.
Yeah.
And he does. I don't think he's the first Batman I've seen in the film
To not actually kill.
to not overtly kill someone or manslaughter, whatever you want to call it. He doesn't kill anybody, as far as I can tell.
And he
I
doesn't
could be
put
wrong.
people in situations where they need to be saved, and then doesn't save them.
Yeah.
He does.
That's just murder with extra steps.
Yeah.
He does put a lot of them in the ER.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Some of those hits are just brutal.
Right. But it's not like a bat flick though, where it's just like,
Oh, I'm gonna kill these guys.
Yeah.
He
So
goes in the way.
Yeah.
Run him over.
So, and I felt like Catwoman didn't learn anything in this movie. At least, with the ideology of Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises, she learns from it. She's like,
Right.
oh my gosh, my ideas about wealth redistribution, let's call it, are wrong. It turned everything to crap. For her, it's just stop trying to kill Selene. Stop trying to kill Selene. And she's like, okay, well now I'm gonna go off and do my own thing by the end of the film. And I was like, what did you learn?
Well,
you didn't really learn anything. You're just gonna do whatever you want,
and
because he's not going to stop you this time.
And that's something I would disagree with. Not that she didn't learn anything. I agree with that aspect. I like that she doesn't, because that's what makes
that
her
does
different.
fit with her.
Yeah, it's what makes her different from Batman. Batman is adaptable.
Right.
Criminals usually aren't.
Mm.
Right, they kind of stay the same. They stagnate.
Exactly, because there's that moment where he's looking down at Falcone and he regrets that he's dead
Yeah.
because he can't serve out justice. She looks down and says justice has been served.
Right,
Mhm.
And
exactly.
so I think it's a perfect way to show that while both are lawbreakers, one recognizes that there is a line and you shouldn't cross it, whereas she, if he wasn't there, would have crossed it a long time ago.
Sure, and I do actually agree with that it does make sense for her. For me, it's she's not as interesting because she doesn't learn anything.
Mm.
It does make sense that she wouldn't
Yeah.
with how she's characterized, and generally that's kind of how Catwoman is. She doesn't really want to change.
Mhm.
But at least I did like, and we did kind of bash on what's her name?
Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, because it's like no one really talks about her. But I was like, at least she saw the error of her ways,
Right.
to a certain sense, and yeah, she'll still do her own thing. But she's like, maybe that wasn't such a good idea.
I liked that she didn't change because of how it worked for Bruce's story, because
Right.
they have an almost instant connection. There was I forget who someone said it about, but when you have these characters who they're so fundamentally different, but because of these similarities, they're able to understand each other like that, and so
Yeah.
because of that, they have this connection. They're drawn to each other, and this was a good reason for me to believe that Bruce would not convince her to try and stay and continue working with him.
Mhm.
This was, I want to be with you, but you're not going to change.
Right.
I have to let you do your own thing.
Right.
Well-
I don't mind her going off and saying,
Sure.
I still have these things, but she could have said, I learned something. But her attitude is, Gotham is, it's not worth it. And he's more interesting to me, and even Gordon, because those two learned something,
Sure.
as they went through this journey.
Well, now that I think about it, I almost think you could say Selena did learn something. It just wasn't a good lesson, because
Yeah, it wasn't
she was
yeah.
staying there for this friend of hers, and I need to protect her. And oh, she doesn't know the ways of the world. I do, and it's just no, it's not. She doesn't know the ways of the world. I know the ways of the world, and this place is awful. It's unforgivable. I'm out of here.
Right. And the takeaway for me is Batman learns that not only can he be inspiring, but others can inspire him as well.
Yeah.
And that it's not about me, because
Mhm.
that's the whole. That's what I think is the whole theme of the whole story.
That's
is that
vengeance. Yeah.
It's the cops are like looking out for number one. The criminals are looking out for number one. Selena's looking out for number one. Batman's doing this because he's looking out for his own selfish need for
Mhm.
vengeance. And the whole point is to learn. No, what you should be doing is looking at. You do this. You can still be Batman. And I've heard the criticism that he doesn't want to be Batman by the end of the film. It's not okay for him to beat up criminals. I totally disagree with that.
Yes.
The point of this film is that Batman, he still has to beat up criminals, but he can't do it for himself anymore.
It's why he's beating up criminals.
Yes, the why has to be for other people and to be an inspiration.
And you guys have any thoughts? Sorry.
Yeah,
We've been dominating this.
I do have some thoughts.
Okay.
I actually talked about this last week during our miscellaneous, when I was talking about the Court of Owls and stuff. How we were talking, I think Aaron and I both hit on it, of how Batman learns why he is Batman in that. And we were saying that's what we want to see in this movie, was like, we want to see Batman go from vengeance to justice, that transition of what he was teaching Damien in the Court of Owls. And I'm happy with how they did it, because you do see that dark, like, I'm here to avenge my parents, avenge Gotham. And then towards the end, he realizes, I'm here to save Gotham, not avenge it. Which is also a side note. I like how Gotham is in its own city.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't look like Chicago. It looks like Gotham.
Even though they did shoot a lot
of
of
it in Chicago, just like the Dark Knight movies.
Right.
I think this is my favorite depiction in film of Gotham.
Sure.
Right.
No, I gotta agree, especially with a modern take. The
Yeah.
aesthetic of it. I like that. Almost every night is raining as well.
Almost every, yeah.
Well, it makes sense. They're on the coast.
Exactly. They're on the coast.
They are a port city.
They're
Yeah.
a port city. Yeah, go for it. You haven't said too much about the
Yeah.
story.
Okay. So first of all, I would say Catwoman not having a good story doesn't bother me, because that just shows how much you want to get back to the Batman story, because that was a good story.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
story, his arc is a good arc to me. You guys already kind of touched on it, but the whole vengeance thing.
Hmm.
I mean, he was doing what he thought was right. Vengeance. I'm gonna have vengeance against these criminals that do everyone wrong. Which that's a good motive in a way, but he was also inspiring the Riddler in the way, and his followers.
Mhm.
They said, "I'm vengeance."
Yeah.
They looked up to him, and their vengeance wasn't. They were going to do what he was doing, just violence, just do violence.
I'm going to hurt people because it makes me feel better.
Well, and it was senseless vengeance because it was the focus was it's society that has made me the way that I am. Whereas Bruce, his vengeance was, oh, this individual has taken away everything I love from this world.
Mhm.
I want to make sure that no one else has to experience that. So it's a very focused type of vengeance that is actually more justice because he's still not willing to cross the line.
Mhm.
And speaking about just the Riddler in general, well, I guess we could put understory, but I like how his mask, if you look at it, is very similar to how Batman's is.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice that in the trailers because I didn't try to focus too much on those aesthetics, but it made so much sense by the time he takes off the mask of one of the Riddler's minions and he says vengeance. I was like, holy crap, this is pretty cool because it's a full circle, because just like we mentioned in Court of Owls, he says, I am Gotham is me, I am Batman, and it's the same type of an idea, is that this
Gotham is becoming me, but
Gotham
what
is
am I?
becoming, but what am I? So I thought that was very interesting, and what Riddler says about wearing masks that allows you to be your true self. You just look at society today, a lot of mobs will wear masks because they feel free to do
Whether
whatever they want.
in person or online anonymously.
Exactly, either one.
And
Yes, but Batman does it to protect the people around him, and so that he's not seen as. Well, I guess he kind of does.
Yeah.
He does not want people to know who he is because they'll treat him differently.
Yep.
Yeah, you obviously see that when he goes up to the ice bar, whatever.
The Iceberg Lounge.
Yeah, Iceberg Lounge. When he goes as Batman, they kind of make fun of him, but then he kicks their butts. When he goes as Bruce Wayne, they're just like, oh my gosh, it's Bruce Wayne. It's a celebrity. So he's just trying to hide that. Whereas they just do it so they don't feel any punishment for their crimes. So, but I like the overall story that Batman goes from being feared by good people at the beginning, like the little boy's scared of him, the cops think he's a freak.
The guy who he saves at the very beginning.
Yeah. It's like, don't hurt me, man.
Yeah, don't hurt me, man. Like, it's like, I just saved you. It's like, they think he's just as bad as everyone else. Because I think the story was that the crime went up because Batman became Batman and he was encouraging you solve your problems with violence.
Yeah.
And so
He was a symbol of fear to everyone rather than a symbol of fear to wrongdoers and a symbol of hope for the the downtrodden and oppressed.
yeah, and you don't really pick up on that until the end, and you're like, oh, okay, he's inspiring everyone, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Mm.
Even though he is working with the police and all that, it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, that guy, he's so cool, he just kicks butt. I'm going to do it my way, I'm going to have vengeance, this is how I'm going to do it, I'm going to be like him.
Well, and just going off of that, because I agree, because there is a learning curve for him for sure. I think this might be, and you guys can correct me, of course, it might be the first time we actually see Batman helping to clean up afterwards, or at least helping people.
The
get out of
closest
these
I can think
situations.
of off the top of my head is after Rachel dies in the Dark
He's
Knight.
standing in the
He
rubble,
stands in
yeah.
rubble. He doesn't
Yeah.
help though.
Yeah, and
He's
that's
just
the
like
thing.
moping.
He finds
Standing
the
around
coin.
moping.
Good job cleaning.
Good job.
And then he gives that to traumatize Harvey.
Yeah,
Harvey
he
even more.
doesn't save the city from being flooded at the end. A lot of destruction
Yeah,
happens,
yeah.
but he saves lives. He gets people out of there.
Exactly, and that's something that the animated series did good. The Justice League TV series did good. Was
Mhm.
in fact they joke about that all the time. Is Superman could be like, yeah, the Justice League will pay to fix these, and he'll look over at Batman, and gives him a nod. Yeah, I got this. So it's very true, and that's something I really did like in the story. Is we start with violence, and it ends with all the violence too. Like that climax, I loved it because it's a reference. The flooding, at least for me, and maybe there's other comics, is a 0 year because Riddler does the exact same thing as he floods the city of Gotham. Now, I would say, as far as adaptation goes for this story, it's probably a really good adaptation of 0 year, which has a lot more drones and things, which works within a comic book world, but a little bit harder to adapt. So I would say it's a very good loosely based adaptation of Zero Year.
Another thing that came to me was this idea of you can't look back on legacy and past and just judge it harshly. You know, or even
We also can't
even
just revere it.
Right.
Yeah.
And people as well, generally speaking, is it's like the point when Catwoman's like, oh yeah, all those people who died at the Riddler's hand, it's like it's totally cool. I'm like, are you insane? That's not cool. Yeah, they're bad guys, but should we bludgeon them and have their son
Have their
walk
face
in
eaten
on
off
them?
by rats.
Yeah, all these horrible, awful, disgusting things. And, you know, she has a war with her past, with her father. He has a war with his past a little bit, and it's like, oh no, Thomas Wayne did this or that, and it's like, it's exactly what happens these days. You know,
Mhm.
you look back and it's just like, oh, these people, my ancestors, or oh, you roll your eyes and it's like, you weren't there, you don't know what it's like. In the case of Bruce, you don't want to know what it's like to have a mother whose parents were crazy and
she was too.
putting her in that. Well, yeah, that would put you in a psych ward if your mother murdered your father and then killed herself. You know, that would make you feel a bit crazy too. And your father's trying to help her because he loves her, I assume, from the film.
Right.
And just the theme of you can't judge too harshly, especially because, you know, the guys who got murdered, I noticed that none of them were just pure evil. Yeah, they were doing some bad things, but, you know, one guy has a family. One guy is, as best as you can put it, a gentleman as far as circumstances can permit. He offers to give Celine on a ride. He's not just all terrible. I mean, you can't just weigh and measure people's lives like what Gandalf says in Fellowship of the Ring, and just, you know, toss it aside because you disagree with the things they're doing and say they're not worth anything.
And even Batman was being judgmental. The way he was treating Catwoman when he's thought that she's just a petty thief, she just wants some money, oh, you're just getting your kicks. He finds out her backstory, and what's the first thing he says? I'm sorry I said those things.
Right, and the guy who's strapped at the bomb, he's like, you know, can we get it off? And he's like, not like that if you want to keep your head. You know, he's not very compassionate, and that's kind of okay with Batman. But this guy was, it was kind of hard, and it was okay that it was hard, but it was, you know, this guy wasn't the worst human being of all time, you know. So
Yeah, I liked a lot of the Batman moments where she's like, you don't care what they do to me, you don't care if I get hurt.
yeah,
And he's
that's
like,
kind
look
of
at
funny.
me. And you think he's going to say, I do care about you. He says, looks like you got it in right.
Yeah, it looks good.
That was perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
The whole film, people are just kind of means to ends a lot of the time, but then by the end of the film, he starts to see people. You know, when he's at the funeral, or
He values people, not just his mission, not just his crusade.
when he sees the kid at the funeral, or before when he's dressed up as Batman, I felt like he wasn't seeing the kid; he's just seeing himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just a reflect. He's like, oh, it's just me. Instead of, oh, another kid's been hurt, it's you know, that's me all over again. Instead of saying, let this kid deal with his pain. You know, let him deal with your own pain and see him as an individual rather than just another nameless, faceless person
Yeah.
in the cog of criminality.
Well, no, I guess I can talk about that aspect of it for filmmaking, but yes, I think this story overall is really good. I think that if you were to trim it down, I don't think that would hurt it a little bit. I personally, not because I didn't like the slow pacing of the
Yeah, this isn't a case of
story.
editing it,
Yeah.
a rewrite.
Exactly.
For that.
Just a little trimming.
Just touch it up.
But otherwise, I think it's really well done. Like I said, I really love the climax because it's perfect with him fighting. Because it's Riddler, and Joker did this in Dark Knight, and some people are going to say they prefer that way better. I actually prefer it done in this film more. Just how he's able to get around and be able to do things so quickly. It's because he's got a following. They actually talk to one another. And the fact that he has minions dressed up like him, it's very reminiscent of the comics. They'd all wear green suits with, you know, little question marks and things. And just the fight above the square gardens as it's flooding and the city's flooding and just
He's literally fighting the consequences of his wrong approach.
Exactly. And it's almost a baptism. I
Mhm.
guess is another way to look at it, because he
He does
himself
fall into the water.
he does fall into the water, and I like it a lot because the action's really well done, of course, but also I feel like when Riddler is a couple steps ahead of Batman, it doesn't make Batman look stupid, but it makes his villain more worthy, which is something that I think everyone who does like The Dark Knight can agree. It's nice to see a Joker be ahead of Batman, but Batman still succeeds, and that's the point of this film.
Yeah, I never thought Batman was stupid in this film. In The Dark Knight, you could argue that Batman didn't look as smart as in this movie, because whenever Batman's in the room, you're like, he's the smartest guy.
Yeah.
Until Riddler's there, but even then, it's like he's been planning this out for who knows how long.
Right.
So
Batman's
of
catching
course
up quickly.
Yeah, Batman is incredibly smart. Like, I thought Alfred was gonna solve that whole little puzzle cipher, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Alfred's helping
Put
out.
Batman on the right track, but
But Batman was like, let's just throw it on the computer and just use the letters he gave us. And then it's just like, oh, okay, sorry, dude, you're smarter than I am. I mean, he helped out, and Gordon's smart too, but Batman was always a couple steps ahead.
Yeah, and that's something I've discussed with my sister Laurel, is when you watch a film with a superhero, you want your superhero to be the coolest thing, which is something that was very much the case in this film. In The Dark Knight, it felt like Joker was the coolest thing, which is okay, but I would prefer in Batman
It was a good
film
Joker
to-
movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good Joker movie. I would prefer to have Batman be the coolest thing, and that his villain can be on par, or maybe a couple notches below. In this film, I feel like both were on par, and I really like that.
okay. Do we want to give our scores for the story now?
Sure.
Okay, I'll start off. The stuff with Catwoman and Falcone not perfectly integrating with me does take it down a bit, but that's my only complaint. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. Stefan?
Oh, it's 9 out of 10.
Yeah, out of 10. Do you want someone else to go?
Yeah,
I can go.
Okay.
Like I said, I liked both those aspects. I think they do well pretty good. So I give it a 10 out of 10.
I liked it. And this is just like our first review, first impression. A couple weeks from now, I might have a totally different opinion. But
Sure.
for right now, I would give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
I think I'm with Jed. I want to give it a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
I'll save it for filmmaking. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, 9 out of 10 for me.
Stefan?
7.
7.
out of 10.
Okay, so let's divide that by 5. Okay, so that means on average for this section of story, we're giving this an 8.6 out of 10, and that will be weighted into our score accordingly. Okay,
Sweet.
performances. Does somebody want to take us from here?
I'll take it. I love all the performances in this film. In particular, I love how just like noir it felt, but very much a detective type story. Like, I thought the way it was beginning with Riddler doing his first kill, no real dialogue except for what's on television and what the mayor says on the phone. It took me a while to realize that he was watching himself on television.
Yeah.
I thought it was a flashback.
To like Bruce's parents for some odd reason.
Yeah, I thought it was his
I mean,
dad
the
too.
It was
Parallels
like-
were done very purposefully.
It was like, oh hey, it's a rich guy.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, in a mansion.
Well, and see, that's the thing. I did too. I was like, is this young Riddler looking in on Batman? That could be interesting. Anyways, but aside from that, I really like the performances of course, Pattinson. I think he did a really good Batman. I did like, what's Riddler?
Paul Dano.
Paul Dano.
Oh,
yeah.
Dano. I thought he did good. Catwoman and Penguin. The only one I wish I could have seen more of was Andy Serkis as Alfred. I thought he did a good job with what was given him. But there's just so many moments where I never got bored with Batman. So that was really, really good. I wanted a little bit more of Riddler, if I'm honest, because he's such a he's a wackadoodle, but not the typical movie audience wackadoodle.
Sure.
you know, which I liked quite a bit. There's a moment where he's singing off of Maria. He sounds horrible, and I love him for it because most of the time movie villains, when they do sing, they actually sound pretty good. He doesn't, and I appreciate that. But yeah, no, those are basically my thoughts. I like all of them. The only moment that I did struggle with was, and that was kind of part of the story, was with Alfred and Pattinson talking about his dad and mom's situation from their past. Not because I didn't think performances were good, but just more of the pacing wasn't quite there. And
A little more time to soak in it, or let's pick up the pace.
Yeah, I was thinking let's pick up the pace more because he goes back and forth. You know, yeah, are they evil? Are they not? I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
Easily
to
swayed either way.
Yeah, exactly. So I just feel like it could have just been picked up a little bit faster. Maybe when Selena says you haven't seen what's on the news, just go right to the news clip or something.
Well, yeah, we're jumping back to like how in BVS, Batman is the one jumping to conclusions, kind of like how people do in society today. You see something on the news, you believe it.
Right.
No, you don't need any more evidence, no more proof. So in this movie, Batman has been seeing all these people dying, and then their backgrounds being shoved on the front page, and they've done horrible things. So when he hears from Catwoman that the Waynes are bad, that's when it clicks. Like, oh no, like there's something bad they did, and then he finds out what they did, and then he just automatically assumes. You know,
Well, not totally. I may rephrase
I wanna
that,
go to
'cause
Falcone
he actually
first.
goes and asks.
That's true.
Which is the opposite of what BVS Batman. He doesn't just talk to Superman at any point in the film.
With BVS, it's very much I've seen this terrible thing, and so I'm going to assume the worst because of what could be.
Yeah.
This I buy more, although I do still like that in BVS, but I buy more because he's young. He feels like people have been lying to him, and he's uncovering all these new things, all these secrets. So it's like, do I know this?
Well, and
It's
it's
like,
also-
no, you do.
He's
it's
very
okay.
he's very malleable.
Yeah.
And it's also like Superman, an alien he barely knows anything about, versus his dad, who he knew he was the best guy in the world.
Right.
So, I mean, he did pretty quickly believe a criminal about, your dad ordered me to kill someone.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
But he thought he had good reason to because of Riddler. I will say, speaking for myself, Batman, I want to give him more time, more rewatches. I don't know if I like him better than Ben Affleck or not, but he's certainly either my number one or my number two Batman. Because both of them got what no other Batman did, where Batman is the core identity. Bruce Wayne is the mask. It's throwaway thought.
I agree with that.
Catwoman, I'll always love Michelle Pfeiffer because of how distinct and crazy and over the top she is. It's great. Anne Hathaway is good, but not the most memorable. It does have that kind of campiness to it, but I don't see myself forgetting this iteration of Catwoman anytime soon. So I'll wait to see if I like it better than Michelle Pfeiffer or not.
That's fair.
Riddler, favorite Batman villain since the Joker, and used better than the Joker was in The Dark Knight.
Definitely.
Ooh, that's a
the
good.
defining Riddler.
Yeah,
I want to hear more about the Riddler being better used than the Dark Knight.
because
Yeah.
this is still a Batman movie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
At no point does Riddler steal the spotlight. And yet, I will still say I loved Riddler for all these reasons. It's almost as good as Heath Ledger's Joker, all that stuff. It's great, but in The Dark Knight, it's a Joker movie, not a Batman movie.
Yes.
Yeah, I think all of us can agree on that, and I know there's a lot of Nolan fans. God bless you.
Yes. We're all
Yeah.
ones too.
Yeah.
We're not the super hardcore fanboys.
Right.
No.
Ben Affleck.
Affleck all the way. No.
Pattinson's good.
Fans is really
Uh,
good.
And I think I agree generally speaking with the performances. Yeah, I think this Catwoman we won't forget because she has quite a larger role in this.
And also, one more thing, Gordon, I don't like him as much as Gary Oldman's Gordon, but not only is he close, I do prefer his relationship with Batman.
Mhm.
Partially because they get more screen time together, but also because with the more screen time comes not just more time to work off each other, but their decisions will affect each other, and you see how that relationship will grow, how it will be tense. And so because there's more depth I do like it better.
One thing I was confused, bringing up the story again, sorry. So Batman punches Gordon, gets away from the police, escapes. And then, I might have missed something, but like half an hour later, he's back with the police, everything's goody two-shoe. What happened between that? Because I thought Batman was
A
going to
half
be...
hour happened.
What happened?
so-
So Gordon says, "Hey, I put an ABP out on
On
you."
you, but he's working just with Gordon for a while in the movie. After that, the
But when
rest of
they
the police,
arrest Falcone,
yeah,
he's back with the police.
then it's a situation where there's like, let's put this aside for now. This is big.
Okay, that's what I kind of assumed, but I was like,
Yeah.
he
Oh,
still
I see.
punched like 2 cops.
Yeah.
Right.
So I thought for the rest of the movie, so when I saw them all together, I was like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see that. But just, I want to do a highlight of the best, or just one of the more interesting parts of the acting, was the guy who played Riddler, I don't know his name,
Paul Dano.
Paul Dano. When he did the whole laughing and singing Ave Maria, I was impressed that they went just with his weird laugh. It wasn't scary necessarily.
No.
It wasn't like an evil supervillain laugh, like mwahaha. It
If
was
anything,
just like
I found
a
it
weird.
pathetic.
It was a weird dude.
I mean-
laughing.
He is pathetic. He doesn't kill people like, you know, a man is supposed to confront a man. He's like a serial killer, which he is, a predator who just hunts people down, hits them in the back of the head. He's a coward. He's pathetic. He's weak. He's the guy that got the crap kicked out of him in high school, middle school, elementary school. It doesn't matter. If you look at him now,
Yeah.
if you look at him now, and if you're a terrible person, you'll say, I think you should get beat up in his 20s, 30s,
Yeah,
40s.
those people
Yeah.
can be just as dangerous as any other people, given the opportunity. And this person made those opportunities.
It's like what Jordan Peterson always says, being harmless doesn't mean you're good. Like this guy, you look at him, oh yeah, he's harmless, he's an accountant, he's got these stupid glasses, he's got a stupid haircut, he's got a stupid face, whatever you want to say about him. It doesn't mean that he's not, being harmless does not mean that you're a good person or that you're virtuous. And neither does being rich or poor, because, you know, Catwoman, she was pretty close to murdering, and she's like bashing on rich people. It's
She
like,
tried several times.
yeah, and she had attempted murder at least twice, and I'm pretty sure she killed one of those guys that she was fighting. But point being, you know, you never know. Just virtue is not found in how much wealth you possess or that you don't. It's also not found in
The color of your skin. Catwoman mentioned that.
it's not found in the color of your skin, because she's, you know, talking about that. And it's like, yeah, the guy in front of you is white.
Yeah.
And he's
And
actually
you're saying in this conversation you want to team up with him?
yeah, he's the best.
Well, yeah.
guy,
And the
like,
funny thing
Just
is,
don't tell me that you're rich too.
She
Yeah.
picked up on that he was rich though. She's like, you must have been raised in a rich family.
it's like,
Yeah.
And she still worked with him, and so she proved her point wrong that, you know, all these white rich people are evil.
Yeah.
So, and it was
Yeah.
kind of interesting to know, and we all knew for sure that he was a rich white guy,
Right.
and that he was a Wayne, which she was accusing to be evil without any evidence, just because the Riddler said so.
just because he's rich.
I want to ask this question real quick because I just thought of it. Many people have been saying Catwoman's referencing of race, you know, like, oh, you're white privilege, all this stuff. This is the movie being woke and trying to push a certain agenda or certain values.
Right.
Do you agree with that or not? Personally, I will say it makes sense because, you know, both with this character, but also the fact that this character in the movie is shown to be wrong.
You hit the nail right on the head. It's not the film, it's the character. It's sort of like Selena Kyle in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
She has ideas, and Batman doesn't say yay or nay, he just is like kind of neutral. Same here, he's like, I don't really see it that way, and I'm not this way or that way. It's just,
Yeah.
it's not the film. I don't think that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a film either. Like we mentioned earlier, the people who died were all bad people. They didn't deserve to die like that. And she just was like, yeah, that's fair. If you done bad things, you deserve to die. And she automatically assumed the Waynes were bad because now they're on the list. And, you know, it turns out she's wrong, but she just believed it. You know, so I think it's very clear in the movie that not everyone is as bad as they seem. There's more to the story.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Just to build off of it, because Riddler was of the same mindset, basically. You know, he didn't make it exclusively about race, but he was talking about the rich and powerful. and that was one of the reasons why I liked the climax of the film, is because we, as the audience, are led to believe, even just us in general, we were led to believe that Riddler knows who Bruce is, that he's Batman. But then they do a little switcheroo, which I really loved, because I was like, oh great, he knows, whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
But they do a little switcheroo, and it makes you think, how would Riddler have acted if he did know that Bruce was Batman the whole time? Because he idolized Batman. And so that's something that's very interesting, because I wonder if the same thing is the same with... Yeah, because he hates Bruce Wayne. I wonder if it's the same thing. What would Selina do if she knew he was Bruce Wayne?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting, and I think it just goes to show for her character, she's very much heat of the moment. She's very reactionary to whatever affects her. And I would say Riddler's the same way. And Batman at times is like that, especially when he takes an adrenaline shot at that moment. But
I will say, was that adrenaline, or is this going to be their version of Venom
I
later?
hope it's just adrenaline.
I hope it's adrenaline,
Right.
but with this grunge emo Batman, I could see it being their proto-Venom.
you know, I would be okay with that, because if we're getting towards a Joker, I wouldn't mind seeing Joker and Bane in a film together. I think that could be potentially...
That'd be fun stuff.
That'd be really fun, actually.
Mhm.
So, I don't know. I do think it's adrenaline, but I wouldn't be upset if it was...
I do think it's adrenaline as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just assumed it was.
Mhm.
But it could be Venom. Could be a little bit of that, maybe not as strong, or
Right.
maybe doesn't have certain elements in it, but
Mhm.
you know, it could be what Bane takes and uses to make his Venom.
Yeah, and then he perfects it, yeah.
Yeah.
It could
So-
be. Yeah. Go
I'm gonna pull it back. We are talking about performances, right? Or
Yeah,
this is
we're
back in
getting
the
lost on
story
detours.
area.
Yeah, so
So with Pattinson, just some things I liked, and I guess it's more characterization than performance, but
It's
they
a bit of
go
both.
hand in hand. I just like that he has a journal, and that he's the narrator to the film. It's his thoughts, like Brendan was saying earlier.
It's very noir, but it's also very comic
thought,
booky.
yeah, the thought bubbles and all that. And I like that sometimes his voice is like, "Is that Rorschach? Rorschach, is that you?"
Yeah, it's
when
Rorschach,
he's talking,
sure.
and some of his,
Mm.
you know, he just talks like this. He doesn't have a bad Batman voice. It's a pretty good Batman voice if you're going to use it, your own voice.
Mhm.
It's certainly better than Bale's. So, and those are things that I liked in his performance, characterization. The Penguin was really good because he was funny, but he also felt like he had a criminal code. Like this, he had a line
He
that he
doesn't
wouldn't cross.
rat. He does
He's
not
not.
rat.
He's not a rat, and that's his way of being honorable. And he's also not easily pushed. He's not easily, you know,
Yeah.
pushed into confessing something or
Yeah.
doing
When-
things.
when
He's
we-
pretty tough. I like the fact that he's really tough.
Well, yeah, because when I heard he was Fredo, I didn't get really that vibe at all.
No, he's way tougher than Fredo.
I got Fredo in that he wishes he was bigger and better and
Sure.
taken more seriously, but he's not as pathetic as Fredo.
No, he's not
No.
nearly as pathetic.
No, nowhere near that.
Like he's intimidating without being Danny DeVito, intimidating and scary. He's he's just this square with a scarred up face, but he was also funny. Like
Mhm.
him hopping along
Yes.
and all that. Screw you guys.
Like when he first meets Batman, he's like, "Hey, take it easy. What can I do for you?"
Yeah, yeah.
Right. I like how
Ever the different.
it's such a weird take because most Batman, they pop out of the shadows and they crack skulls. He sort of just knocks on the door.
Yeah, he just goes through the
Never
front
seen
door.
it. Well, no, I've seen it a few times in the Arkham games, but
Yes.
even then, it.
Yes.
You always
Isn't
have to go
it,
through some vents.
Yeah.
Well, no, because in Arkham City, there's a few times where you'll knock on a door and there'll be police or goons on the other side. They'll open it up and okay, guys, it's Batman. Let him in.
Yeah.
But this is
Right.
just knocks on the door. Guy opens up. Hi, I'm Batman. Can I come in?
Yeah,
They
kinda
laugh
like
at
that.
him and
It was very.
That's true.
It felt.
He doesn't
kind
have
of,
the reputation yet.
Yeah, it was kind of the Adam West type of film,
Mm.
but in a almost a respectable way.
Did you
because-
catch the Adam West reference when he ran down the building with the rope?
Yes, yes. Well, I was
Oh,
actually thinking
that's
of
what
Tenet.
you were laughing at.
Oh, yeah.
Because he does that in Tenet too. So, but yeah, no, that it was very much an Adam West type of feel. Is hey, I'm Batman. Oh, he's Batman. Well, we're not gonna let you in.
You're Batman. Oh, go in.
Okay. Does anybody want to give out their first score for the performances?
I can.
Okay.
So I would give it a 9 out of 10. I'd say overall it's really good. Just a couple parts I can't remember, but it's just a couple parts that took me out of it.
Yeah.
But I do agree with Jed that Batman, I really liked the performance. I felt whenever he was Bruce Wayne, he was not himself. He felt uncomfortable. He felt like he was out of place, a fish out of water. But when he was Batman, his presence changed. It was like Superman versus Clark Kent. One was slunched over, and the other one's big guy.
Yeah.
You know, what needs to be done, I'm going to do it. So, 9 out of 10. I really like Batman's performance.
Yeah, one, Robert?
I honestly want to say 10 out of 10. Okay. Like, performance-wise, like, just performance as is, I think they all did a great job. But yeah, the Batman, I really like it, especially since we already kind of knew that he's only been a Batman for a year.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have the older Batman of like, oh yeah,
Confidence,
he is wise, he's confident. It's going to be hard to sneak up on him. But we get that level of Batman that it's like, he's competent, he's good, but he's still learning.
Yes.
So I like that.
Yes.
Especially with gliding.
I did like the gliding suit. Not gonna lie.
I did too. I would. I'd give it a 10 out of 10 as well. I did like all the performances. I think the issue I had was more of a story issue.
Sure.
So
My character
I give it a 10.
writing.
I was going to give it an 8 out of 10 because while I think everyone did a great job, no one was like, Heath Ledger great, and so
Sure.
for me that's what it would need to be a 10. Stefan reminded me of the Penguin, and while it's not quite Heath Ledger good in terms of like, oh, this is going to be an Oscar win, it is enough for me to bump it up to a 9. He was so much fun without taking away any of the fear factor.
I agree.
So I give it an 8. The main 4 that I really like carry it so that's well above average.
Mhm.
But some of the things and other minor characters we didn't discuss, I just didn't. I didn't care for.
There was the one cop that Robert loved so
Ooh.
much.
The Rodriguez, is that his name?
No.
Officer Rodriguez.
The guy in the apartment who's like,
Uh,
hey, my uncle used that tool. That guy?
Yeah, what's his name?
Is it Rodriguez or Martinez?
It's Martinez.
Martinez.
Martinez, yeah.
I did like Martinez because he's like, oh, Batman sucks. Oh, hey, Mr. Wayne, and my dad used to do that. He's kind of a semi-comic.
He kind of, he went to like being like this weird guy to like, oh, hey, Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to touch. What are you doing?
Yeah. All right. So for our category of performances, we're giving it a 9.2 out of 10, which will be weighted accordingly. Now, filmmaking. This is editing. This is cinematography. This is the action. This is all of it. Yeah, direction. Robert has thoughts.
I do have thoughts. So I'm a huge fan of
Okay, yeah, go.
fighting stuff. That's why I pay attention to a lot, especially when it comes to guns.
Yes.
Hollywood annoys me when it comes to guns. So this movie did really good, by the way, for Corey. Like, I love the fighting. We haven't really gotten to see a martial artist Batman. Like, I mean, he knows how to manipulate the body. He knows how to break their bones. He knows how to use their weapons against them. Because I feel like the Christian Bale Batman, I liked him, but he was very much a brawler.
Yes.
He wasn't a martial artist.
And Affleck was more, this is a superhero, not a martial artist.
Yeah, he was like, I can throw your head through a floor.
it was martial arts
Versus-
on steroids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Versus this one is like more down to earth Batman. Like, he's peak physically, and he knows how to handle a person in a fight. But I really got to complain about the gun thing.
All right, say it.
Go ahead, say it.
Why in the world do you have to cock your gun in the middle of a battle? That gun should be loaded. Brendan can probably tell you about this too, as a fellow gun owner. Especially a police officer. When he pulled out the gun and then cocked it, I was like, that should already be loaded, dude.
Especially in Gotham.
Especially in Gotham, yeah. Now, a Catwoman, that kind of made sense because, like, she probably just grabbed the gun.
This is prep.
Yeah, this is her prep time. But when you're in the middle of a fight, you shouldn't be like, better pull this out and cock the gun.
You should be ready to
This
go.
should be already there. I mean, the only thing you need to do is pull off the safe.
It's that movie stuff. They just
yeah,
they want the audience.
It's just
The
one of
audience
those
has
things
to know. Oh, we're getting serious now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like,
it's
It's
just
the thing that
voice.
pokes at you.
The only question is, was there a specific moment? I'm
Or
assuming
is this just a
for-
general trend in the movie?
Yeah.
it's a general trend that I've seen in the movie because it happened a few times. It happened with Gordon. Catwoman, I gave the exception because it was more of a prep time. Let's see, there was a few other times I saw a few cops do it. Bad guys did it too.
By some of the bad guys, because most of the bad guys in this movie are internet bros who probably have never used a gun.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fair. The other thing is, it looked cool, the scene where he shot up in the police station. And they're all shooting. My brain was just like, how many civilians did you just shoot? Because you're firing guns upwards, and there are people up there.
Right.
Fellow officers also
Yeah,
shooting.
I agree, but I also wanted to bring up the point that a lot of these guys are dirty.
That's true.
Yeah.
And Batman he's on to at least the chief, and the chief knows it. I don't know if they clarified if the chief was bad or not. I don't think they did.
Yeah.
But I know there's for sure dirty cops
He's at
in there
least
who are
untrustworthy.
working
Yeah.
for Falcone. So you know their goal is to just kill Batman because he knows it's onto him. So I will agree. Yeah, that is endangering the safety. However, a lot
They're
of them are
dirty and
dirty.
they don't
Anyone
care.
who fired a shot in a police station while trying to apprehend somebody,
When it's not a clean shot.
right for somebody for punching a cop, you know, they got to be pretty dirty.
Yeah.
To do that.
That's true. That is very.
I didn't think of that. My mind was just like, you're
No,
trained
and-
officers,
and-
stop
and
shooting.
You're absolutely right. It's actually a clip that was released where he runs away and they're shooting at him. So I've had more time to think about it because I was like, "Are you guys out of your minds? Why
Why are you
at
shooting them?
So that's the only reason I have that observation.
Well, we're on the topic of guns, or you got something more?
Oh, I was
I was
just
gonna say that the only other thing is I did love the choreography in the fights, like him taking on all these guys,
Yeah.
but he's still getting hit.
Yes.
Like he's got some brutal hits to the face too, and I'm like, ooh. And with the gun thing, the shotgun blast to the chest,
Yeah.
that was cool.
He's
That was
heavily
I-
armored,
I-
but you see why. Oh, he's down and out.
Yeah, well, yeah, and he was close quarters, and that's a double barrel shotgun.
Right, and
that's
I was
gonna
like,
hurt.
that's what I was gonna bring up. Like,
Normally in movies when people get shot with shotguns, they fly back, 50 feet. It's just like, that's so cool. And then you like learn about bullets and physics, and you're like, that's not how that works.
No.
But with Batman, he's wearing armor, so it's not, the bullets aren't going through him. They're just pushing him.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, that's the first time that's made sense. Or Superman getting shot from airplane in Man of Steel, his head flies back.
Right.
And that makes sense because he's Superman.
Yeah.
And your head would fly back anyways if you got hit.
Well, it exploded if it was a jet.
Yeah, if it's a
Right.
jet, it just go right
So
through.
I did like that with the guns. I was like, okay, that shotgun actually made sense this time.
yeah. Not all the guns were bad. It's just
I have a few nitpicking things about it.
Sure.
Otherwise, I think they did a good job.
yeah, it's been a sin of Hollywood for a long time. So I kind of
Some people
People are getting better at it.
Yeah.
Some people like, with John Wick. But, no, I mean,
are they really Hollywood at that point?
Are they really Hollywood? at
They're
that
the
point?
stuntmen of stuntmen.
This is true. Just going off of just other filmmaking aspects, I love the cinematography in this film.
Gorgeous.
There is the car scene, which is really good. The only complaint I did have was I did think there was too much of what I'm going to call wheel view.
There was a lot of shots like that.
Yeah, I did like wheel view quite a bit, but I think we could have had a few more aerial views. Aside from that, I love that there's traffic. I love that Penguin has and Batman have very close calls, and so the scene is very, very good. Just as far as because you watch any other Batman film, there's never traffic,
Yeah.
and that never makes sense. This is a Gotham City. It's full. It's busy. It's got a lot of people in it.
Yeah.
Other cinematography I liked. I love the use of color because it does feel very dark, but whenever there's a little bit of light, you love it.
Yeah.
Whether it's the sun rising, whether it's in the Iceberg Lounge, the police, or even with Riddler with his green light and things like that, I like it all. So I really do like the cinematography in
I
this.
do have a question that I want to put out there to the group.
Sure.
Just because we brought up the Penguin, did he get away with killing a whole bunch of people on the traffic? because by the end of the film, it's assumed he's taking over Falcone's place. But now it's like,
Yeah.
did he just blow up all these people and he's getting
Did
away
we
with
see
it?
anyone die?
We didn't see anyone
I can,
die.
with comic book movie logic, I can say, okay, maybe some people, their cars were destroyed or whatever, but no one died.
Nobody died.
Or I
'Cause,
could
I
also
mean,
say
he did
maybe
survive
he wasn't
blowing his
apprehended.
car.
Yeah, he wasn't apprehended for this, so maybe they can't officially pin it on
Right,
him.
because Batman chased him. That came to
Well,
my
see,
mind. Like,
that-
did he get away with it?
Well, see, that's the
Yeah.
thing is because it is a vigilante making the, I guess it could be a citizen's arrest, but because he is
Yeah.
a vigilante, a wannabe citizen.
But even Batman didn't bring him in.
Exactly.
He just questioned him.
Well, see, yeah, that's the thing. He just questioned him. So
With Gordon.
with Gordon, so technically it's not on the books.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they kind of do just let him get away with it.
Yeah. But
Well, and
If people died,
if people died, I think.
Well, he'd
it'd
still be
harder.
breaking traffic laws.
Oh, for sure.
Property damage. So,
Quite a
so
few.
there's still plenty to
You know,
put him away.
if it's implied that he's paid, because there's apparently going to be a show on HBO
Yeah.
about him. If he like pays these people off, it's like, okay. But if he killed people, it's like, Batman, you need to get a little better at your job.
Well, and the thing about that, and I just noticed, Batman, as far as we could tell, he wasn't all looking at the people who just blew up. He was focused on getting Penguin,
Yeah.
which is, I think, part of his story arc. Jumping back to
He has
story,
the
sorry.
tunnel vision.
Brendan!
All you can
Direction is
see-
a part of story.
Yeah.
Directions
All,
first.
all he can see is getting the Penguin, finishing the mission, solving the riddles.
Mhm.
He doesn't see the people that
He
just
doesn't
blew
see
up.
collateral damage.
But by the end of it, he sees that the Riddler is all about that too.
Mhm.
Vengeance. Getting my goals
Yeah.
solved. Flooding a city that had nothing to do, the normal citizens had nothing to do with society being oppressive to him.
Mhm.
I mean, he was all killing all these millionaires and
Yeah.
stuff.
And
So, I like that.
I think that was a good use of where they did all their cuts, because they kept cutting back to the Riddler and some of the people, but then they would cut to all this issue, like all these issues going on. So they're like, with the video editing, this guy is the reason why this is all happening.
Yeah.
And here's Batman's reaction to it all.
Yeah, the editing was great. Not just in terms of which shots they decided to put where, because the storytelling with editing was great. Lots of long takes, which in the action means you actually get to see what's going on. And then in the, maybe not action scenes, but the these predatory sequences where Batman is coming, you're supposed to be afraid. It puts you in these goons or these people's seats, and oh crap, he's coming. I don't know where. Is he over there? I'm afraid. It's a great way to, just a long shot of a dark hallway, instantly like, hey, he's coming. I can't get away.
Where's that red lightsaber?
Exactly, yeah. And so I think the editing, it was great. The cinematography was great. It was shot by the guy who did Dune, is going to win an Oscar this year. He also shot Rogue One. This didn't look like either of those movies. It was a perfect fit for this story and this world. It not only use of color, its use of shadow is great.
Yes.
The technical term is chiaroscuro. It's an Italian word that just means light and dark. But the way that the darkness it felt like it had a character of its own. But the light, how it interacted with the darkness, casting shadows, and also what it chose to illuminate, did a lot for establishing tone. It did a lot for showing and what's the word, like characterization of the characters. So yeah, the filmmaking, I'll just give it a score right now, like 10 out of 10 for me.
I will agree. As soon as we got to filmmaking, I was like, pretty much 10 out of 10. And I agree with those things you're saying. The thing that I really liked was the direction,
Yes.
because Matt Reeves decides to make Batman proactive and act
Mhm.
rather than being acted upon, which is my big critique of the Dark Knight's characterization of Batman. Is
Yeah.
The whole film, besides the chase sequence, he's being acted upon. He is responding to what the Joker does rather than taking action against the Joker. Whereas in this film, Batman is acting. He's doing things. He's going forward.
And
He's
he is
not-
reacting, but he is driving the plot, not just being driven by it.
Right, and technically, the whole plot just revolves around him. The villain revolves around him.
Yeah.
And so I just like that he acts and he doesn't just wait for the bad guy to do something else, but he's active and he's trying to figure things out so that he can catch him.
Yes, and in fact, just going off of that, with the direction, but also the sound design, I love the fact that every time he leaves the shadow, purposely to intimidate, you can hear him walking.
Yes.
Because that's something we generally don't see, at least from my memory of previous Batman films. It's always stealthy, or he's immediately like, or then you're gonna love me, or punch, whatever.
Yeah.
But no, he takes his time. You hear the thump of his heavy boots as he exits the shadow.
When you hear him, it's because he wants you and the others to hear him. He wants you to be afraid.
Exactly. And so just sound design, I agree with Jed. I'll give my points as well as 10 out of 10. I think the filmmaking is very well done.
Yeah. Did you give it a score?
I said 10.
Wait, Aaron, you're not going to give it a 9 point something because of the wheel cam?
Like I said, I do love the wheel cam.
It's just maybe used 1, 2, 3 too many times.
Maybe 1, 2.
I'm gonna give it a 1 out of 10. Too much water.
There's way too much water in this film.
Wet. That's how I
Moist.
Moist.
But in all seriousness, it is a beautiful film. It is a little too dark for me, but I get that it's a Batman movie, so I'm gonna get a 9.5 out of 10.
Okay.
I mean, I just wish there's a little bit more lighting in some parts of it.
I'm gonna give it a 9.9, just because that scene where he jumps off of the thing. I didn't need a head cam there.
Oh, I love that.
I'm kidding. It's 10.
I was gonna say,
I'm not that petty, I swear.
I was gonna say that was one of the best shots.
I just have to say, Batman takes a lot of damage in this film.
Yes,
That's
Like
a
when-
lot of damage.
When he goes down and then he
That shit
hits
killed him.
That
I was like,
should've.
oh, you're dead. But you're establishing he can survive that.
Or-
And the bomb.
Yeah, like it's enough to blow this guy's head off, and he's inches away from his head.
He
Nothing.
just goes like this.
He's just
and it's fine.
he needs to be passed out for a half hour.
Yeah.
Should I take a click of that?
And that's my. I guess this is when Matt Reeves says Superman can be in this world. I'm like, oh, you totally could. I disagree, Mr.
It might
Reeves.
have to be an adaptation of Superman, but Superman could.
I think he could be in there.
Yeah.
Personally, so I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, I definitely think the Ben Affleck universe was more comic booky.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely not the story necessarily.
This has its moments of theatrical and absurdity, but it is much more grounded.
I think this one is closer in story to the comic books, whereas Ben Affleck's is closer to what you're looking at in comic
The
books.
content,
Yes. Yeah. I agree. I think
Okay.
That's a good way to compare it.
All right, so it looks like for filmmaking, our average score is 9.9 out of 10. Gee, come on, Brendan. But
We're so close.
Round it
Wait, did you
up.
say 9.9?
9.9,
Oh,
yeah.
I called it.
All right.
It was the head cam, wasn't it?
It was the head cam, exactly.
It was the head cam.
All right, so we'll go on to our final category. This is the one that is weighted the least, but we thought we should still bring it up. The score. I'll be quick about it since I love music. I love talking about music, but I don't always know a lot of the right terms for it. I'll say this score is iconic. It's memorable. It's perfectly fitting for everything. I'm going to get it a 9 out of 10. Only reason I don't give it a 10 out of 10 is because for me that's like a Star Wars or a Lord of the Rings. This is 100% greatest film score of all time. Doesn't quite get that for me, so 9 out of 10 for me.
Sure. I agree, 9 out of 10. I loved listening to it before I saw the film,
Yes.
so I built up some things. That being said, I do like character themes, which we don't get a lot, especially in Marvel superhero films.
Yes.
Which is a shame. But I do like that there's recurring themes. And
Great leitmotifs.
Right, and you can repeat them. So, alright, 9 out of 10.
I was going to give it 9 out of 10, but then I heard Riddler singing Ave Maria, so I'm going to give it a 1.
Too much water.
Too much water. It's moist. No, I also give it a 9 out of 10 just because I'm kind of in the same mindset as it's iconic enough for its own film. Like, once you hear the Batman theme, you're not going to forget it. And that's the theme that I'll remember more, other than Ave Maria, but that's its own song. So
Well, I'm going to remember Riddler's separate theme, which is
Yes.
similar to Ave
which
Maria.
is very similar. So I agree. I give it a 9 out of 10. It's almost there, but not quite.
I give it 10 out of 10. It kept me engaged the whole movie. I felt like I was never taken out of it because of the music.
Okay.
It only drew me in closer. It is not as good as Star Wars or some of those others, Indiana Jones or what have you. But it did its job for me. So I give it 10 out of 10.
All right.
I may be the one out of the room on that one. I'm more of like an 8.5.
Okay.
I don't get me wrong. I liked a lot of the music, especially Nirvana.
Sure.
I did like Nirvana, but
That is good though.
I liked because it set the mood for a lot of situations. My only problem is the 4-chord song that just it felt like it never
The main
finished.
theme.
Yeah, the main theme.
It's relentless.
It kills me because I'm like, I want to hear like, can you do more
It
than just
doesn't resolve.
Yeah. I'm like, come on. I'm waiting for the Batman theme. Come on, give it to me. But I never got it. So I'm giving it. It docked it down for there.
Okay.
Just a half point though, because otherwise I'd be on the same note as you guys, where it's a 9 out of 10. Because Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, John Williams is the man.
Yeah, easily.
So mine's an 8.5. Sorry, I brought it down to 9.9, didn't I?
No, you brought it down to 9.1, which
Yeah.
is perfectly fine. But with that said, we now have our scores for our 4 different categories. They're weighted appropriately. Do you want to hear what our final grade for The Batman is? All right.
I do.
Combined with story, performances, filmmaking, and score, our total is a 92.2 out of 100. And you know what? I think that's a pretty good score for this movie.
I agree.
That's very good.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
That's better than our Star Wars.
So disappointed in you, Boba Fett.
Right.
But yeah, it's a very exciting movie. Very, very much not for everyone, but very much for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, all of us have shown that we love it. I do think it might be. I'll have to rewatch it. It might be my new favorite Batman movie personally. But yeah,
I think without, I want to watch it more times. So I want to watch the other ones more times to compare. For me, right now, this is my favorite Batman movie. I might think Dark Knight is a better movie in general. But again, I want to watch both of them back to back. I want to compare them.
Stefan?
I'll have to see it again. So that's all I have to say.
All right.
That's fair. That's actually probably a smart thing to say.
yeah.
But yeah, if I'm comparing it to my favorite Batman, which is Affleck, I would say that I do like it a lot, and that for what it is, it does it really well. And I'm glad that Warner Brothers, just on a side note, finally is letting them have the runtime they need to tell their story, whereas BVS and Justice League were cut drastically so that they could have more time slots, so they could sell more tickets. Whereas this movie, they just let it be 3 hours long.
They respected the auteur's vision.
Yeah, because they learned that if you cut out an hour and a half, it's going to be like Schindler's List cutting out an hour and a half.
Yeah, we need that hour and a half.
Yeah, how do you tell the story without that? So I'm glad that they did that, and props to you, Warner Brothers.
Close us out, Robert.
Oh, Aaron, did you not?
I already said I liked it. It might be my.
Favorite Batman.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, my brain was looking at the computer. Yeah, I think it is my new favorite live-action Batman. Because I don't know, I really like those new 52 shows or cartoons. The animated ones. Probably because the Batman voice is just so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
He just talks like this. I'm like, that's Batman. But as far as live action goes, I really enjoy it. I will definitely watch it again. Hopefully it'll end up on Vid Age a little bit, but it's Warner Brothers.
It's Warner Brothers, so it won't be on bidding.
Oh, dang it. Oh, I'll still probably get it to watch it.
Yeah.
It's just, my parents won't want to watch it because of all the language, because yes, it is, don't bring
It's
your
got
kids.
a lot of language.
But yeah.
I like super awful language, just a lot.
Yeah, it's noticeable.
Did anyone else notice the reference to Long Halloween?
Oh yeah, it was full of them.
Yeah.
From starting on Halloween to the Catwoman Falcone stuff. To,
Him literally saying it's effing Halloween.
Yeah. Thursday, October 31st. Yeah.
Can we compare that F-bomb to the Snyder Cut F-bomb? Because those are the only 2 F-bombs. Well, there's actually an F-bomb in the BVS movie. But
Right.
let's ignore that one. Which one do we like better, and which one do we think was
I don't like.
I don't like either, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think either were necessary. I think that the one in the Batman was better. Just because this is him, this person who we don't get a whole lot of screen time from, but it does establish character for this one guy with only a few lines that, the rest of you people may be cool with working with a guy who dresses up like a bat that we don't know, but I think you're all weirdos. I'm putting my foot down as much as I can because I can't stop you, but this should make you happy. Get out of here. I don't care. It fit his character.
I'm surprised this whole time Robert didn't point out, that guy, and then the guy who replaces him, high-pitched voices.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Okay. I gotta
It's like-
share this little story here. For a second.
I was sitting there. The commission. No, who's the guy?
The chief, right?
The
So
chief.
the commissioner and
Commissioner was the one who drops the F-bomb.
Yeah.
The chief was the one with the mustache. He's like,
Okay,
son of a
yeah. The moment that I heard the voice of the commissioner, I was like,
Can't take
Yeah.
it
or
seriously.
not the chief, not the chief, the one who dropped the F-bomb.
No, the commissioner dropped the
Commissioner is the one.
Yeah,
who dropped it.
Peter
Okay.
dropped
Yeah.
it.
So when the commissioner came in, he started talking. I was like, oh, Peter Griffin. and then yeah, the commissioner, as he's talking, it sounds like he's talking about the mob. I'm like, he's got to be Falcone's man. But I looked over at Steph and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't take his voice seriously. It's killing me. I looked over and I was like, where's the bets?
yeah. Yeah, I heard you, and I was trying not to laugh.
It killed me. I'm like, why can't we just have a rough guff?
Guff.
Rough.
I will say, this movie and potential sequels and just show spin-offs and all, I would buy, Goon saying, look, it's the bats!
Yeah.
Which I could never say about any other iteration of Batman.
That's true. That's true. But to answer Brendan's question,
Oh, come on.
I don't like either. I think when you're filmmaking, you don't have to. You have the full control. I don't think that type of language is necessary. That's my personal belief. You can disagree with me 100%, and you won't offend me. I'm not offended that you appreciate that type of language either. I don't, and that said, yeah, that's enough.
Yeah. I don't like the language. Every time Batman showed up, I was like, he's not Jesus. Stop saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time he
Exactly.
showed up, they would say Jesus.
They're very, very surprised.
and then I'd be like, do Batman's voice. In
You
my
know,
head.
it's-
I'd be like, no, I'm Batman.
It's funny in Batman '89 because when
Yeah.
he picks up Jack Nicholson and he says that, my dad is like, no, that's
That's
Batman.
Batman.
So this whole film, whenever they would say that, no, that's Batman. No, that's Batman. No, that's Batman.
Happens
That's
a lot.
Batman.
Yeah,
It's
honestly,
Vengeance, Mr. Vengeance. You called him that.
It's Mr. Batman.
honestly, for me, I'm like, I don't really care about the F-bomb personally. Construction, mechanics, also all my work in life.
Right.
But
You have no soul.
as far as saying, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Me and Jared are the soulless people here.
Injury fellow.
But well, Brendan's heard my language.
I heard it
didn't
today,
see it,
Robert.
So it's not for this channel.
Come on.
You have heard it today.
Don't bring me down there.
No. I'm putting you higher because you don't stoop to my level. Don't stoop to my level. Anywho, I could do without taking the Savior's name though. Like that was just, I don't like that.
Yeah,
at
one-
all. The F word I can handle, but the Savior's name, I'm like, you didn't have to. There's so many different words you could use.
Yeah, it was one too many times.
Times about 30 minutes into the movie, which
And it kept
3-hour
happening
movies.
after that.
Yeah.
It's like, I guess this is their favorite one, and I might agree with you a little bit on that one, because it's like, the F-bomb, it's like, it's kind of lost its sting in some sense,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
taking the Lord's name, I don't think
Right.
they'll ever lose its sting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
As
the F bomb's
religious
a
people,
common
we don't like
nowadays.
that.
Mm.
Whereas the Savior's name, that's sacred.
Yeah.
So
If you couldn't tell, we're very religious.
Yes.
In fact, most of us
Right.
are monks on the weekends.
If you couldn't tell from
Not
the
me.
last 20 podcasts,
I'm a nomad.
little religious. A little bit.
Yeah, I just to answer my own question. I do think it didn't feel as edgy or edgelord in this version.
It's like, this is just some moron saying the F word.
Right. It didn't feel like we're gonna have the camera focus in on me as I say it. Look in the camera.
Right, and they had to do small cuts.
Batman.
I mean, they filmed that part in Zack Snyder's garage or whatever, you know. So they had to do the shots very small. And
Right.
They were
Right.
trying to make it as intense as they could, and
Yeah.
I think that may have been a little too far.
Yeah. It was
Messing.
because of the limitations. It was the wrong time to do it. It was the wrong time to do it for other reasons too. But yeah.
Sure. So, yeah, but yeah,
Any other issues? Because we really praised the film. Robert said guns. We talked about language.
Bit of maybe too much darkness for Brendan visually.
Visually.
There was a blur. I'm glad that you pointed it out. There was a blur in the, or what? Somebody pointed out that there was
Somebody
a blur.
said something about blur.
Sometimes
During the
I
film?
was like, what's
I mentioned it
Is
while
it
we
right?
were watching it. I was like, I kind of like how they blurred out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there were many
graphics
times where
to
the
it.
camera's choice of what it wanted to focus on was very deliberate.
And I was
Yes.
like, is it just me? Or is
Yes.
everyone saying this?
Yeah, is this on
Say
purpose?
what?
So they're like, what?
Looks over at Stefan like, I don't know what you're talking about.
It's great.
It looks so gross right now. Ugh,
The
it's
blur
all
that
blood.
really worked for
For me is when he goes after Coulson inside his car and he hits him and it blurs like he's like in
Yeah.
and out of consciousness.
Yeah.
That really worked for me. And the action, didn't like that so much, and I guess I should save that for filmmaking, but that was just something I was like,
It's a nitpick, yeah. It's a nitpick, but no less valid for me to nitpick, yeah.
I have a lot of nitpicks, but otherwise, I won't let that judge the rest of the movie.
Yeah, we've already passed our sentence.
So, all right, we're thank you for tuning in to us. We're going to have something special next week. We've been putting this together for a long time. It's been a long time coming. We finally get to see it. We're talking about The Last Jedi, and we're talking about not only our thoughts on it, but we want to show you how it's totally possible to 100% disagree on this, but we understand where each other are coming from. We're going to do this civilly, and this is a way for us to come together and not be driven apart. So yeah,
I hope this doesn't go down.
It 100% could, so we're gonna try our best not to. But yeah, in the meantime, make sure to like, share, subscribe. Tell us what you thought of the Batman once you've seen it, because please go watch this movie. And tune in next time as we fight to the death, apparently.
And
Oh,
don't forget, you can follow us on
Did I
Twitter to
just
get
say
more
that?
information on
There
it.
you go.
We do have a few, we have a show, some animations coming out. Maybe not this year, we'll find out. We'll find out. If we
find
get
out.
your support and you subscribe, there's a higher chance it'll get done faster. Just saying, gas is expensive, guys.
All right, but yeah, this has been the World of Cinematics reviewing the Batman. Signing off. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.